Hello and welcome back to Podcast and Chill on the Learn English podcast channel. I'm Leo.
And I'm Gwen. It's great to see you all again.
Today, we have a really exciting topic, how to say no.
Saying no is something that many people find difficult. We often feel pressure to say yes to everything, even when we don't want to. But learning to say no is very important. It helps us take care of ourselves and our needs.
In this episode, we'll discuss why it's so important to know how to say no politely but firmly. We'll talk about setting boundaries and protecting our time and energy. So, get ready to learn an important life skill.
Today, we're going to talk about something really important, how to say no.
Yes, saying no is a skill that can help us in many ways. Gwen, can you explain why it's so important to learn how to say no?
Of course, Leo. Saying no is important for our health and happiness. When we say yes to too many things, we can feel stressed and tired.
That's right. It's like when we have too many toys or too much food on our plate, we can't enjoy everything.
Saying no helps us have more time and energy for the things that really matter to us.
It's also a way to respect ourselves and our boundaries. If we always say yes, even when we don't want to, we can feel unhappy or stressed.
That's a great point. Saying no is about taking care of ourselves and our needs.
All right, now that we understand why saying no is important, let's talk about how to set boundaries to make it easier to say no.
Boundaries are like rules we make for ourselves. They help us decide what we want to say yes or no to. For example, maybe you have a boundary that you don't work after 8 p.m. If someone asks you to do something work-related after that time, you can say no because it goes against your boundary.
Or maybe you have a boundary about how much you spend on hobbies each month. If a friend asks you to go on an expensive trip, you can say no because it's outside your budget.
Setting boundaries helps us feel comfortable saying no to things that don't fit our needs or values.
And it's important to communicate our boundaries clearly to others. That way, they understand our limits and don't feel hurt or confused when we say no.
Exactly. Being upfront about our boundaries makes it easier for everyone involved.
Now that we understand the importance of setting boundaries, let's talk about how to say no in a polite way.
Yes, it's important to be clear and firm when saying no, but also kind and respectful. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but we also need to stand up for ourselves and our boundaries. One simple way to say no is, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." It's direct, but still polite.
That's a good one. You could also say, "Thank you for asking, but I'll have to pass this time."
Or if someone asks you to do something and you're not sure if you can commit, you could say, "I appreciate the offer, but let me think about it."
Those are all great examples, Gwen. It's important to be honest, but you don't have to give a long explanation if you don't want to.
Definitely. Sometimes a simple "no, thank you" is enough. And if someone keeps pushing after you've said no, it's okay to repeat yourself firmly. You could say, "I understand, but my answer is still no."
Exactly. The most important thing is to be respectful, but also confident in your decision to say no. Let's look at some new words in the conversation above. Overwhelmed, meaning to have too much to deal with, overpowered or overcrowded. Example, if we always say yes, even when we don't want to, we can feel unhappy or overwhelmed. Firm, meaning solid, steady, and not easily moved or changed. Example, and if someone keeps pushing after you've said no, it's okay to repeat yourself firmly. Confident, meaning having a feeling of certainty or belief in oneself and one's abilities. Example, the most important thing is to be respectful, but also confident in your decision to say no. Respectful, meaning having or showing respect, polite, and considerate. Example, exactly. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but we also need to stand up for ourselves and our boundaries. Upfront, meaning direct and open, straightforward. Example, being upfront about our boundaries makes it easier for everyone involved. Why is it important to learn how to say no? Answer: it's important to learn how to say no to avoid feeling stressed, tired, or overwhelmed from saying yes to too many things. Saying no helps us have more time and energy for the things that really matter. What are some polite ways to say no? Answer: some polite ways to say no include, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." "Thank you for asking, but I'll have to pass this time." "I appreciate the offer, but let me think about it." Or simply, "No, thank you." Sometimes when we say no, we might feel guilty or like we're being selfish. But Gwen, is that really true?
No, not at all, Leo. Saying no is actually a really healthy thing to do. It's about taking care of yourself and your needs.
So if we said yes to everything, we would get overwhelmed and stressed.
Yes, saying no allows us to focus on the most important things in our lives.
But what if someone gets upset or tries to pressure us when we say no? That can be really difficult.
You're right. Sometimes people might not understand our reasons for saying no, and they might try to change our minds.
In those situations, it's important to stand firm and repeat our no in a calm, polite way.
And remember, you're not alone if you struggle with this. Many people find it difficult to say no, especially when facing pressure from others.
The most important thing is to stay true to yourself and your boundaries. Don't let guilt or pressure make you say yes when you really want to say no.
Exactly. Saying no is a sign of self-respect and self-care, not selfishness.
Now that we've covered how to say no politely and handle pressure from others, there's one more important thing to discuss.
After we say no, it's really important to take care of ourselves.
Can you explain what you mean by that, Gwen?
Of course, saying no, especially when others are pressuring us, can be really hard and stressful.
It sure can. That's why it's so important to take some time for yourself after saying no.
We can do things that make us feel happy and relaxed, like reading a book, taking a bath, or going for a walk.
It's like giving yourself a little reward for being strong and sticking to your boundaries.
Definitely. And during that self-care time, we can also reflect on our decision to say no.
What do you mean by reflect, Gwen?
It means thinking about our reasons for saying no and feeling good about our choice.
I see. So it's about building our confidence and self-esteem by reminding ourselves that we made the right decision for us.
Yes, reflection can help us feel proud of ourselves for saying no instead of guilty.
Well, those are some great tips for our listeners. Saying no is a skill that takes practice, but it's so worth it.
I couldn't agree more. Taking care of ourselves and standing up for our needs is so important for our happiness and well-being. Let's look at some life-related words. Boundary, meaning a line that marks the limits of an area. Example, boundaries are like rules we make for ourselves. They help us decide what we want to say yes or no to. Commit, meaning to bind or obligate oneself to a course of action. Example, I appreciate the offer, but I can't commit right now. Pressure, meaning the use of persuasion or intimidation to make someone do something. Example, but what if someone gets upset or tries to pressure us when we say no? Reflect, meaning to think deeply or carefully about something. Example, and during that self-care time, we can also reflect on our decision to say no. Self-esteem, meaning confidence in one's own worth or abilities. Example, reflection can help us feel proud of ourselves for saying no instead of guilty.
Well, that's all for today's episode on how to say no. We hope you learned some useful tips and feel more confident in your ability to set boundaries and protect your time and energy.
Remember, saying no is a sign of self-respect, not selfishness. It's okay to put your needs first sometimes. And don't forget to practice self-care and reflection after saying no.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another helpful discussion on important life skills. Until then, take care.